The story begins with a strange object moving toward Earth at an astonishing speed. At the same time on Earth, a hunter named Wolf is checking the traps he had set and discovers that he has caught a deer, which he immediately places in his vehicle. While examining the animal, he is suddenly knocked to the ground by a massive shockwave coming from the sky. A mysterious object crashes nearby, sending up a huge cloud of dust. His dog starts barking loudly, and out of curiosity, Wolf decides to head toward the crash site. The dog jumps out of the vehicle and runs straight toward the crater, but after a short while, Wolf hears the dog whimpering from inside the crater. Moments later, the dog comes running back out in a terrified state, while Wolf cautiously moves forward in shock. Suddenly, a terrifying growl echoes from inside the crater. He quickly pulls out his gun and points it toward the crater when another, even more horrifying roar is heard, shaking him badly. The next day, we are introduced to a teenage girl named Renee, who loves animals deeply and is saying goodbye to her dead pet lizard. Her mother, Linda, is at home, and Renee is angry with her for forgetting to take her to the pet store. Linda appears to be feeling unwell, and then their conversation is interrupted by Renee's stepfather, Chase, whom Renee absolutely dislikes. Tired of his sarcastic remarks, she decides to leave for school quickly. Outside, when she sees Chase's car, she thinks about getting revenge by scratching it. At school, Renee dislikes the environment there and does not have many friends. During break, only a boy named Paul stays with her. He is interested in animals and tries to talk to her, but Renee does not speak to him much. After school, she waits for her mother, who arrives very late. Angry about her mother arriving late, Renee hears that Linda had a terrible morning. She suggests that Linda should speak to her doctor about her medication, but Linda insists that her medicine is working perfectly fine. Renee notices that her mother is behaving strangely and asks if she had another fight with someone, but Linda tells her not to talk about it anymore. After reaching home, Renee goes to feed her pet snake, but it refuses to eat. She tries to make it feel better by playing music, but eventually gives up. During dinner, Chase brings up the scratches on his car and tries to ruin the atmosphere, but Linda asks everyone to spend the evening peacefully. Then Chase complains that the microwave smells strange, and Renee explains that she had heated her pet's food in it, which makes Chase furious. He starts arguing with Renee, calls her disgusting, and throws salad in her face. To escape the situation, Renee walks out of the room, takes a deep breath, and shortly afterward, the sounds of fighting and yelling can be heard inside. Instead of getting involved in the argument, she takes Chase's ATV and rides away. After some time, she stops in a deserted area and begins thinking about her life when she suddenly hears strange noises. She immediately grabs a flashlight from the vehicle and moves toward the sound, where she eventually discovers the same crater shown at the beginning. While inspecting the area, she suddenly catches sight of a strange creature. She trembles in fear as the gigantic monster rises and stands before her. Renee quickly hides in a corner and lies flat on the ground to protect herself, but the creature cannot attack her because it is chained to Wolf's vehicle. The beast runs around wildly and desperately tries to free itself, while Renee remains completely frozen in fear. Eventually, the creature becomes exhausted and stops trying to break the chains. As soon as she senses the silence, the teenage girl quickly gets into the vehicle and starts driving away. But the moment she notices that the creature has injured itself while trying to escape, the sympathy she feels for animals prevents her from leaving. She walks closer to the chains and carefully manages to free it, but the creature immediately becomes aggressive and frightens her, causing her to run away in terror. When she reaches home, she looks through the window and sees that her mother is acting completely normal with her husband, which leaves her confused. Feeling upset by the situation, Renee decides to stay outside for a while longer. The next day, while heading to school, she notices several military helicopters flying over the area and becomes excited because she believes she has discovered something extremely important. At school, she approaches the only person she knows, Paul, and asks if he can lend her a camera. He replies that he could, but the camera belongs to his mother. Hearing this, Renee makes a deal and tells him that she will write his English essay in exchange. Paul likes the offer and agrees. When Renee returns home, both husband and wife are waiting for her because they want to talk to her. Chase tells her that he is trying to change himself and has joined a support group to quit drinking. He asks Renee to support him through the process. Renee angrily replies that he was drunk just 24 hours ago. Chase says she is avoiding the real issue and claims that all of this is for Linda's well-being. He tells Renee to try treating both of them nicely so her mother can stay happy. After saying this, he leaves the room while Linda tells Renee to stay calm because because he is genuinely trying to change. Renee responds that he did not even apologize for his behavior the previous night before walking off to her room. Once inside her room, she makes a list of all the things she will need before returning to the creature. She waits for everyone to fall asleep so she can sneak out quietly, but before leaving, she takes the keys to Chase's car. We then learn that she actually wanted to get the revolver stored inside the vehicle. She also realizes that Chase has no intention of changing because she finds several bottles of alcohol inside the car. Renee returns to the place where she first encountered the creature, but this time she keeps her distance and uses binoculars. She cannot see the creature anywhere, so she gathers the courage to move closer. There, she finds several dead animals. However, the beast is nowhere to be seen. After observing carefully, she notices traces of yellow-colored blood leading in a certain direction. When she looks that way through the binoculars, she spots the creature resting inside another crater. She fires the revolver to get its attention, but fails miserably. After that, Renee changes her plan and decides to approach the creature closely and record a video to prove that she is not crazy. She turns the camera on and says that if anything happens to her, whoever finds the video should inform her mother. Renee is terrified, yet she still forces herself to move forward. When she gets there, she discovers that the creature is trapped in a bear trap, and she frees it using a cutter. However, the creature appears completely lifeless, which disappoints Renee because she believes it has died. Renee does not want to waste the opportunity, so she decides to at least take a picture and obtain proof of the creature's existence. She steps a short distance away to grab the camera, but behind her, the creature slowly begins to rise again. Just as she reaches the camera, the creature suddenly lunges at her, and Renee helplessly falls to the ground. Renee has no time to run because the creature is already standing right above her, and she is so terrified that she cannot even look at it. But the creature does not attack her. Instead, it behaves like a dog and drools on her. It does not seem aggressive at all and slowly steps away from the girl. Renee immediately backs away in fear, but she keeps staring at the strange and astonishing creature. Several hours pass as Renee tries to understand what exactly this thing is. She attempts to feed it, but it refuses to eat the fruit she offers. She then starts searching through her bag for something else to feed it, but at that moment, she hears the sound of a helicopter. Renee tries speaking to the alien creature and warns it to stay away from those things because they belong to the government and are dangerous. She does not know whether the creature understands her or not, but she turns off the camera and says goodbye to her new friend. Now the teenage girl is back at home checking the camera recordings, but when she looks through her bag, she realizes that she accidentally left Chase's gun behind. As she leaves the house to retrieve the revolver, she notices that the alien creature has followed her all the way home. She cannot force it to go back, so she allows it to join her on the mission to recover the gun. Along the way, she becomes extremely worried because she fears what will happen if her mother discovers all of this. A short while later, she realizes that her new friend has disappeared somewhere into the darkness. She calls out for it, but it does not respond to her voice. Suddenly, it appears right behind her and uses its alien powers to form a powerful connection with Renee. The next day, Renee wakes up and sees that her friend is still beside her, and she happily hugs it. This time, she does not leave it behind and instead brings it home with her, successfully hiding it inside the basement. Meanwhile, after the incident, the government is searching for clues about the creature, and the investigation is being led by agents Jonathan Keyes and his partner Brown. Jonathan complains that he had already warned everyone about this threat, but government bureaucracy always creates obstacles. Renee waits for everyone to leave the house so she can bring her friend inside, and then she tries feeding it meat, but it refuses to eat that as well. Inside her room, she introduces the creature to her other pets, but the beast tries to eat her snake. Renee quickly stops it and says that they are all friends. Renee gives the creature a nickname, Croak. Then Renee picks up her guitar and starts playing the same old song. As soon as she does, she notices that Croak reacts to the music. She realizes that her friend seems frightened by something, so she comforts it and promises that she will protect it for as long as she can. At the same time, Linda returns home from work, and when she checks her phone, she sees a message from Chase claiming that he has been sober for 48 hours. Reading this makes Linda cry because she knows he is lying. On the other hand, Renee is showing TV shows to Croak when suddenly she hears noises at the door. Afraid of how her mother might react, she immediately takes Croak outside. When Linda enters the house, she notices the mess scattered everywhere, which only worsens the situation. A little later, Paul decides to visit Renee's house, and Linda opens the door to welcome him. Paul explains that he came to collect his camera, so she lets him inside. Paul enters Renee's room and notices a photograph of Renee with her father. He then sits down and waits for her to return. When Renee comes back, her mother questions her about the mess in the house and also asks why she did not go to school. She replies that she was feeling sick, so she came home early. She immediately heads upstairs to her room. Once there, she sees Paul watching the footage from the camera and asks him what exactly that thing is. Before explaining anything, she quickly shuts the bedroom door while Paul secretly takes out the tape and hides it in his pocket. At first, the teenage girl refuses to tell him everything, but Paul keeps insisting and demands to know the whole truth. Renee tells him that she found the creature in the middle of the desert, and she was recording the video so she could sell it and become rich, but the creature eventually escaped. However, after seeing how nervous Renee is, Paul realizes that she is lying, and he demands to know the full truth because the camera belongs to him and he has a right to know. Paul gives the camera back to her, but he still keeps insisting on hearing the truth. When she checks the camera, she discovers that Paul has removed the tape, and she immediately demands that he give it back. But Paul decides to confront her and says that he will not return the tape until he learns the truth, which leads to a tense argument between the two of them. Hearing the noise, Linda assumes the teenagers are doing something inappropriate, so she walks into the room. Both of them become embarrassed, and Linda asks what exactly they are trying to do. Paul, who has become completely frustrated with the situation, threatens to hand the tape over to the police. Now Renee has no choice left, so she takes him to the basement door and asks whether he really wants to go inside. As soon as they enter, she warns Croak that she has brought a friend with her. The moment Paul hears the creature's growl, he becomes terrified. When Croak approaches him, it does not behave in a friendly way and instead tries to attack Paul, but Renee quickly stops it. She tells her friend that he cannot eat the boy because he is their friend too. Paul becomes so frightened that his whole body starts trembling, and when Croak comes close and begins sniffing him, he instantly backs away. The fear overwhelms Paul so badly that he faints. Seeing this, Renee says that she already knew something like this would happen. The two of them wait for the boy to regain consciousness so they can continue talking, but the moment Paul opens his eyes and sees the creature again, he panics once more. Renee tries to calm him down and covers his mouth so he will not scream. Then Renee tells him to trust her. Afterward, she slowly removes her hand from his mouth and walks closer to Croak, beginning to sing the same old song again, which makes the creature happy. Paul is left completely astonished by what he sees. After that, the two of them come out of the basement, and Renee begs Paul not to tell anyone about Croak. Eventually, Paul decides to return the tape. Renee thanks him and tells him that her friend means a lot to her. Paul then says goodbye and leaves. Far away, Brown and another agent are secretly watching the two of them and recording their conversation. The next day at school, Renee and Paul are talking to each other, and she tells him that she has been unable to feed Croak because it refuses to eat anything. Paul asks whether she and Croak can meet him in the desert that night, but Renee immediately refuses because agents are searching for the creature. Paul tells her that the agents are searching toward the west near the canyon, which surprises her, and she asks how he knows all of that. Paul then explains that maybe Croak does not want food handed to him by someone else, but instead wants to hunt for himself. That night, the two of them meet again, and Paul shows her a wild boar. Renee signals Croak to move forward and hunt, but at first, the creature does not understand. However, the moment it notices the animals, it attacks them with savage ferocity and begins eating its prey, while the two teenagers continue talking nearby. After finishing the meal, Croak even brings back some meat for Renee. She thanks him and says that she is not hungry. Renee thanks Paul for helping both her and her friend that night. Paul becomes happy and tries to hug her, but Croak instantly growls, as if he dislikes the idea. While returning home, Renee runs into Chase, who is heavily drunk. He says that he knows Renee stole his keys and took his revolver. He demands that she return the gun, but Renee explains that she lost it in the desert, which makes him extremely angry. He orders her to sit down on the couch so they can talk, but when she refuses and starts walking toward her room, Chase grabs her by the hair and forcefully drags her toward the couch. He says that he is going to teach her a lesson because she is not afraid of him and does not respect him. Meanwhile, Croak, who is in the basement, begins sensing Renee's fear and grows restless because of the situation. Renee tries to escape from him and calls out for her mother, but Chase manages to catch her. She quickly thinks of a way to defend herself and bites his arm as hard as she can. This only makes him even angrier, and he immediately slams Renee violently against the wall, causing her to collapse helplessly onto the floor. He then moves closer and tries to hurt her, but at that exact moment, Linda arrives and attempts to stop him. Meanwhile, Croak senses Renee's fear and begins smashing his head against the wall, causing the entire house to shake. When he realizes that he cannot escape from there, he finally stops and Renee understands that her friend had been trying to help her. Her mother calls Chase a terrible man and tells him that she is completely fed up with the situation before throwing him out of the house. Linda tries to come closer to her daughter, but Renee is extremely angry with her mother and tells her to stay away. Afterward, Renee goes down to the basement and manages to calm Croak down, who is still furious. The next day, while she is heading to school, Agent Jonathan blocks her path. He introduces himself and asks whether the two of them can talk. Renee refuses and says that she has to go to school, but Jonathan does not let her leave. With no other option, she goes with him, and Jonathan gets straight to the point, saying that he already knows she is hiding something. Eventually, he lets her go, but before leaving, he threatens her. He says that next time he will return with a warrant, and then he will send her to jail for hiding the truth and illegally possessing a firearm. Meanwhile, Linda calls a plumber because she noticed that the water in the house was not working, and she thinks it might be because of the earthquake-like shaking from the previous night. The plumber says that he never felt any shaking at all, which surprises Linda. The man goes down into the basement, and after noticing something strange in the pipes near the ceiling, he starts following it. Eventually, he comes face to face with Croak, and, terrified, strikes the creature with a tool, which enrages Croak. The creature immediately attacks the man brutally, but somehow he manages to escape from the basement and frantically jumps into his vehicle. However, he does not get very far because another vehicle crashes directly into his car, resulting in a horrifying fatal accident. At school, Renee keeps thinking about her conversation with the agent, and at one point she even considers calling, but then changes her mind and crumples up the card. While returning home on the school bus, she notices the same accident near her house, but does not pay much attention to it and continues on. Then Linda arrives and offers to drive her home. Once they get home, an argument breaks out between the two of them, and Renee says that she can never trust her mother about anything, and that all of this is her fault. After some time, both of them calm down, and Linda mentions that she had called a plumber to fix the pipes. The moment Renee hears this, she immediately runs toward the basement and sees destruction and bloodstains everywhere. Renee rushes over to Croak and notices that he is injured. She asks whether he ate the man. Then she remembers the earlier accident and realizes that the crash must have happened because of Croak after he allowed the plumber to escape. She warns her friend that he can no longer stay there because her mother might call another plumber or even come down there herself, and then more people could get hurt. Meanwhile, Brown goes to meet Paul and tries to get information out of him. Later, Paul calls him and Renee asks him whether they can meet at the same hunting area. He replies that they can. Soon, the two of them meet there, and Renee explains her plan to take Croak to a wildlife reserve. She says that she will stay there with him for some time as well, but Paul disagrees and tells her that she has gone crazy. Renee replies that she is not asking for his permission, she only wants his help. Then Paul reveals that a man had come to meet him and asked him many questions. Renee tries to calm him down and says that everything will be fine, but the teenage boy explains that the man also threatened him, saying that he would have him deported back to his country. However, he assures her that he did not tell them anything. Later, Renee prepares to run away from home and leaves behind a note for her mother explaining the entire situation. Just as Renee is about to drive away in Chase's van, the man suddenly appears with a gun and forcibly drags her out of the vehicle. At the same time, agents are approaching the location where Croak had been hiding, while Chase takes the girl into Linda's room. He holds both mother and daughter hostage and begins abusing and threatening them, while soldiers arrive at the vehicle where the creature was supposed to be, only to discover that there is nothing there. At that exact moment, Croak is already making his way back toward Renee, and Chase attacks Linda, knocking her violently to the floor. Seeing this, Renee seizes the opportunity and tries to escape, but the man chases after her. Eventually, he catches her, and just as he is about to hurt her, Croak arrives at the perfect moment and brutally kills Chase. Even though Renee repeatedly begs him to stop, he refuses to listen. Then, when he realizes that Renee herself has become afraid of him, he decides to run away. At that same moment, Paul arrives there as well. Renee tries to explain the entire situation to him, but Paul says that he no longer wants to help her and admits that he has told everything to the Federals. At the same time, Jonathan arrives at the house and meets Linda. Renee becomes furious at Paul, but the boy explains that he had no other choice because they threatened to deport his family. Jonathan confirms his statement as well, and the moment Renee attempts to flee, he immediately pulls out his gun and shoots the tires of the vehicle. She is then captured and tied to a chair. Soon, the agents realize that there is an incredibly strong bond between the girl and the creature. Without hesitation, he breaks one of Renee's fingers, causing her to scream in pain. The The instant Croak senses her suffering, he rushes to save her, but the Federals manage to restrain the creature. Renee begs them not to hurt him, but an agent knocks her unconscious. Later, the Federals transport Croak to a secret government facility, and Renee and her mother are also taken there. Jonathan tells Brown to try convincing Linda to cooperate because he himself has failed to do so. Meanwhile, he goes to meet the girl, who is being held inside an isolated room. Renee regains consciousness and immediately asks whether they killed Croak. Jonathan coldly replies that they did, because now they already have everything they needed from him. Hearing this, Renee angrily spits in the agent's face, but he does not retaliate. He simply tells her that she is now in serious trouble for hiding a dangerous creature. Renee asks whether helping an alien has become a crime now. Jonathan replies that maybe it is not illegal by law, but there are people who strongly oppose it. She responds by saying that he believes Croak was evil, when in reality he was only scared. Then Jonathan reveals a shocking truth. Renee is not the first human to encounter these creatures. She is merely the first one to survive. Jonathan explains that the girl will now have to become part of a study. Renee asks what the study is for. The agent replies that the purpose of the research is to discover the most painful possible way to kill those creatures. She asks what will happen if she refuses. Jonathan then threatens to send her mother to a mental institution and turn her life into a nightmare. Meanwhile, Brown confronts Jonathan and disagrees with his methods, saying that this experiment should not become like what happened in Iceland. But Jonathan has no interest in listening and says that he is willing to go to any extreme necessary to achieve his goal. Eventually, Linda is allowed to meet her daughter, and she asks whether everything those people said is actually true. Renee struggles to explain the entire situation, so Linda shows her the note she left behind before running away. Renee says that she wrote the letter without thinking clearly. Linda apologizes to her daughter for forcing her to endure so much pain all these years, and says that her daughter has a heart just as kind as her father's. At that moment, Brown walks into the room and escorts Linda outside. Then Jonathan warns Brown that he will give the girl only 5 minutes to make her decision. Meanwhile, Renee desperately tries to free herself, but fails. Knowing about her powerful connection with Croak, Renee begins hurting her injured finger even more in an attempt to somehow call her friend. Croak starts sensing her pain, but it is still difficult for him to respond. Now that she has no other option left, the girl breaks another one of her fingers and screams in unbearable pain. Hearing her screams, the agents immediately call for additional security backup. But at the same time, Croak manages to break free and starts attacking the agents, while Jonathan is still trying to keep Renee quiet. Renee bites the hand of the man attempting to restrain her, but Brown immediately intervenes and knocks Jonathan to the ground. At that exact moment, the lights throughout the entire base begin flickering. Croak has already reached the interrogation room, and both agents pull out their weapons while waiting for the creature to appear. Within moments, Croak smashes through the door, sending both agents crashing to the floor with injuries. And just as he is about to kill them, Renee stops him and tells him not to do it, or else he will truly become exactly what people believe him to be. After that, the two of them begin trying to escape, but Jonathan regains consciousness soon afterward and picks up a weapon again to kill the creature. Renee attempts to steal a vehicle so she can help Croak escape inside it, but Jonathan arrives there with a gun and immediately starts firing. The two of them hide behind the vehicle, while the man continues shooting relentlessly. In order to protect his friend, Croak decides to fight back, but he is struck by several bullets. Even so, he still succeeds in killing the agent. However, Croak also dies during the battle, and when Renee sees her friend lying motionless on the ground, she breaks down in tears. A short while later, Linda arrives there and tries to comfort her daughter. Several days pass, and Renee is seen sitting alone on a swing, playing Croak's favorite song. But elsewhere, scientists are still studying the body Croak, and shockingly, the creature is still alive, and that is where the story comes to an end.